Welcome to Mythosium, the channel where we turn complicated ideas into clear, meaningful stories about how science shapes our world. Today we're exploring one of the most powerful and complicated scientific legacies in human history, a discovery that feeds billions, reshaped nations, and transformed the destiny of the entire planet, all while emerging from the mind of a man whose actions would become the center of deep moral conflict. His work has saved more lives than perhaps any scientific achievement across modern history, and yet it is also connected to some of the darkest chapters society has ever known. This is the story of how humanity learned to break one of nature's strongest chemical bonds and, in doing so, set the stage for both global prosperity and unprecedented destruction. To understand this story, we must start with nitrogen, an element that quietly governs life on Earth. Nitrogen makes up most of the atmosphere, but almost none of the nitrogen floating around in the air is available to living organisms. Plants and animals need nitrogen for proteins, enzymes, DNA, RNA, for every biological process. But the nitrogen in the air exists as molecules made of two nitrogen atoms locked together by an extremely strong triple bond. Breaking this bond requires a tremendous amount of energy, far more than most natural or biological processes can provide. Organisms cannot simply absorb atmospheric nitrogen. It must first be transformed. For most of human history, this transformation came from just a few slow processes. Lightning strikes can break the nitrogen bond, creating reactive nitrogen compounds that get washed into the soil. Certain soil bacteria can also perform nitrogen fixation, using energy-rich enzymes to convert atmospheric nitrogen into usable forms. But these natural processes are limited. The amount of nitrogen they supply is tiny compared to the needs of agriculture and population growth. Farmers long ago noticed a pattern. Grow crops on the same soil year after year, and yields eventually collapse. Plants strip nitrogen from the soil, and without replenishment, the land becomes exhausted. For centuries, societies relied on manure, compost, and crop rotation to replenish nutrients, but these methods could not keep pace with expanding populations. Then, in the 1800s, the world stumbled onto an unexpected treasure: vast accumulations of seabird droppings, guano, left to harden over thousands of years on Pacific islands. These deposits were rich in nitrogen and became incredibly valuable. Nations fought wars over these seemingly insignificant islands. They passed laws to seize them. The price of guano soared to extraordinary levels, and global agriculture became dependent on it. But by the late 19th century, the deposits were dwindling. Scientists understood the looming crisis. With global population rising and natural nitrogen sources failing, many feared widespread famine. Chemists began looking for a way to convert atmospheric nitrogen into usable nitrogen compounds. But unlocking the nitrogen triple bond proved almost impossible. For nearly a century, scientists tried and failed. This was the challenge that drew the attention of a German chemist working at the beginning of the 20th century, a chemist who would soon alter the trajectory of the world. His name was Fritz Haber. He believed that nitrogen could be captured from the air, combined with hydrogen, and transformed into ammonia, a molecule plants could use, if only the right conditions could be achieved. The idea was straightforward, but the execution required working with pressures and temperatures beyond what laboratories at the time were accustomed to handling. Haber envisioned combining nitrogen and hydrogen at extremely high pressures while heating them to temperatures at which the molecules would react. He needed catalysts, materials that could encourage nitrogen to break apart. He needed equipment that would hold together under extreme conditions, and he needed a way to make the reaction efficient enough to be scalable. Through years of experimentation, innovation, and refinement, Haber finally achieved what so many chemists before him could not. He produced ammonia directly from the air. The breakthrough was small in volume, just tiny drops of ammonia forming in the equipment, but it was equivalent to discovering a new foundation for civilization. A chemical reaction that nature performed only slowly and unpredictably had been replicated in a controlled industrial process. In partnership with engineers at a major chemical company, this laboratory discovery was scaled up. Reactors were built that could safely operate at massive pressures and high temperatures. Pipelines, compressors, and furnaces were designed to move hydrogen, nitrogen, and ammonia in quantities not previously imagined. In just a few years, factories were producing tons of ammonia every day. The world suddenly had a synthetic source of nitrogen fertilizer. Farmers could rejuvenate their soil without waiting for natural cycles, and global food production expanded dramatically. This transformation is difficult to exaggerate. Without synthetic nitrogen fertilizer, the Earth could not support its current population. Roughly half of the nitrogen atoms in the bodies of people alive today come from fertilizers produced by the industrial method derived from Haber's discovery. Billions of lives have been made possible because humanity learned to convert atmospheric nitrogen into a usable form. But the story does not end here. The very properties that make nitrogen such an essential nutrient also make nitrogen-rich compounds powerful explosives. Many explosive materials release nitrogen gas when detonated. The formation of nitrogen's strong triple bond releases enormous amounts of energy. When nations entered the First World War, the demand for explosive materials surged. Ammonium nitrate, chemically similar to fertilizers, became a critical ingredient in wartime munitions. His research laboratories worked on new forms of weaponry, including gases intended to break the stalemate of trench warfare. The deployment of these weapons marked a grim turning point in modern warfare. Chemical agents introduced new forms of suffering, and their use provoked widespread condemnation. While some military leaders believed such weapons might shorten the war, others viewed them as crossing a moral line. The same mind that had helped feed the world had now contributed to new methods of destruction. After the war, Haber's life grew more complex. When he received the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for his work on ammonia synthesis, some of his colleagues refused to attend the ceremony in protest. Even after the war ended, Haber continued to work in chemical research, directing an institute that contributed to advancements in many fields. But political changes soon altered his life again. When restrictive policies targeted Jewish scientists, even those who had served their country, Haber resigned in solidarity with the colleagues who lost their positions. Decades later, tragedy deepened the complexity of his legacy. A chemical compound originally developed for agricultural purposes at his institute was modified into a lethal gas and used in act of genocide during the Second World War. Although Haber had been dead for years, the connection between his research institution and these atrocities added another layer of moral ambiguity to his story. This narrative highlights a profound challenge in science. Many discoveries are neutral at the moment they are made. Their impact, whether beneficial or harmful, depends on how society chooses to use them. The same chemical process that allows billions of people to eat also provides ingredients for explosive weapons. The same research that improves agriculture can be adapted for darker purposes. Throughout history, scientific progress has offered powerful tools, but these tools carry risks. The question becomes not just how to expand scientific knowledge, but how to guide its application responsibly. The legacy of Fritz Haber captures this duality. He solved the chemical problem that threatened global food supplies, enabling unprecedented population growth and improving life for countless people. This tension persists today. As science becomes more powerful, the stakes grow higher. Technologies such as genetic engineering, artificial intelligence, and nuclear physics hold enormous promise, but also carry potential for misuse. Haber's story serves as a reminder that scientific discoveries cannot be separated from the ethical framework in which they are applied. Knowledge expands humanity's capabilities, but wisdom determines the direction of progress. Understanding this balance is essential for shaping the future. Science is a tool, a remarkably potent one, but it requires thoughtful stewardship. The achievements of one scientist can lift billions out of hunger or leave shadows across history. Recognizing this complexity is part of understanding how humanity must move forward. At Mythosium, we explore stories like this not to judge historical figures by modern standards, but to learn how discoveries ripple across time. If you're interested in how science, ethics, and human decisions intertwine to shape civilization, make sure to subscribe. There are many more stories to explore about the forces, seen and unseen, that define our world. Thanks for watching, and stay curious.